Welcome back, everybody. Congratulations to Miflazet. Yeah, that Miflazet. I don't know. Congratulations. Join Discord. Message Solo for your prize. Okay, so we are back with our guests. I will just allow them to introduce themselves, and then we will get started with the questions. So we will start with Taryn.
Well, hi.
Sick beard.
My name is Taryn Hackett. You can catch me on Instagram and in chat at Valrook, Valrouk. On Instagram, I post pictures of cats and D&D things sometimes when I have time. You can catch me here on the Fable 42 network playing Jinx, the Shifter Monk. On Mondays for Legends of Sha'oghal, and occasionally you can catch me as Rookazel, the Yonti wizard who is not an edgelord, not even a little. And yeah, that me.
I guess my turn.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm Jordan, better known as Casual. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at casual_Campbell. I use my Twitter for motivational things, and my Instagram hasn't had a picture in months, so it's about time. I play Hemian Vermonte Vespasi on Wizards, the lovable, innocent, sweet necromancer. I also play Clay, the lovable, sweet cowboy samurai in Vault 42. And I also play Rex, the definitely lovable, innocent individual in Legends of Sha'oghal. And also, I am also very debatable, apparently. And I'm also the director of business affairs when it comes to Fable 42. So, and I'm putting on my full Ronin attire for the day.
Yeah.
What's your first sentence of the on your bio on the website?
What is my first sentence?
I don't know, you're like a ninja of spreadsheets or something. I don't know.
It's literally something like that makes it a little. It's trying to be fancy about something that's lame. Jordan is the strategically minded business savant who ambushes you with spreadsheets.
Yeah, ambushes you. There you go. Yeah. So that's him.
I guess that's the other thing officially.
Yeah,
right,
yeah. Guys? I was gonna do announcements. So yeah, go ahead, do your
so
absolutely.
You do it. I want somebody else to do it. No, I don't want to.
No. Okay, fine. It's my show.
My beard.
Yeah, I'll do it. It's my show.
Announcements? Oh, you can do it. That's fine.
Yep. Okay, so like I said, I had mentioned before that we have a new producer, and that would be Taryn. So congratulations, Taryn, on that position. So she is joining the producers of Fable 42 and all that we do. And since we're on the subject of like announcements and things that are very new, Casual, you want to go ahead and just talk a little bit about the game that just ended, and what it was for and all that sort of stuff?
Yes. So, the Threat of Kamali, which again was DM'd by our wonderful, fabulous storyteller GW, who pulled in some excellent strings to get some amazing people on there. This was something we had considered actually a while back. With the state of everything going on, we felt it was time, especially me and GW, said we should do some kind of campaign to really show off, Black excellence. And we had said February would be the perfect time, Black History Month. But then after the passing of Chadwick Boseman, rest in power, Bombay, we felt that it needed to happen sooner. And after some delegation and consideration, we felt that the best way to say Black excellence was put on the one day left that was still Black Friday, to make the blackest of Fridays, where we put up a charity to prevent cancer, in lieu of the fact that Chadwick Boseman did pass from colorectal cancer, who fought strong, I want to highlight, who made excellent movies, and almost no one really knew what he was going through. And it's why you could still donate to the cause, and every dollar matters, because every dollar helps the organization take one step closer to making sure that people don't have to suffer alone, and also we don't have the ignorance of what these issues really are. And it was a great thing to have people play the game for it. And the donation link is still live. It should still be in the Twitch panel for you guys to donate. And again, every single dollar counts, because you too can be a hero, because Wakanda thanks you.
Yeah, and it was, it just, outside of everything, it was just a fantastic show, right?
It was. Aside from everything,
it was.
You have some of the greatest, some voice actors, some actors, cosplayers, and people deep in the D&D community who really brought out the Black excellence to create a beautiful narrative that we can all relate to, their storytelling, their interwoven characters. Everything about the entire show was just beautiful, because it felt like those people had been playing this campaign for months,
Yeah.
and they were like, oh yeah, here's just one of our random episodes. And
Yeah.
the chemistry, I fell in love with them. Like from the moment it started, you're like, oh, they have an
Agreed.
entire background just ready.
Yep, I agree with that 100%.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started with the questions. And this one came from the chat, so we're gonna go a little off script, but we'll just start with it. Speaking of backstories, and we'll go straight to you, Casual. It was the one that Ferrex just posted. So we'll do, how much does Rex value his life because he has been making some moves, mainly hinting that he wants to become a god? That would make him even more concerned.
So I will say, without obviously, I
That
don't
make me more concerned.
no deep spoilers into it, but it's been addressed that over and over. Rex is constantly been talking about deification. It's been brought up every episode and every other conversation. But there's always these inkling conversations that he's not saying like, "I want to become a god." It's, "I will become one. I must become one." There's a it's one of those. He said he's keep in mind he's technically only 17 years of age. He comes from a very happy, loving home. There's none of these like broken backstories. He has a loving father, a loving stepmother, and a loving stepsister, and a loving birth sister. So he has a great family, but he is a 17-year-old who once was told, as he said, that he will one day become a god. And when you tell a 17-year-old that they can do anything they want to be, they will push it to the limit. I know
Sure.
most people who are, when I was young and someone said, Jordan, you're doing great in school. When you grow up, you could be whatever you want to be. So if someone told me I could become a god, I'd be like, all right, let's see how that can do. And I can tell you, Rex is based off the fact when I graduated high school, someone told me that. And the first thing I did is I ran for mayor of my hometown. But I was like, what if I could take that a step further? So I'm like, Rex is like my high school version of
Most
me.
casual Campbell sentence I've ever heard in my
No kidding.
Yeah, I graduated high school, started college, and was like, I wonder what happens if I run for mayor. I almost won, and I'm like, I like that, and I'm like, let's put that on to Rex. Let's give him that opportunity to just become a legend in his own way.
That's amazing. Yeah,
So,
it's.
Oh my God.
I have a. I know there's another question here about
yeah,
that sort of thing, so I want to go ahead and follow up with it real fast. But I'm just looking for it right now. It's about your family because I was actually kind of curious
my
about that
headset.
too. So, okay, so he does lead us. You still there?
We lost your audio.
That was awesome.
Me?
Continue, carry on. I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. You got me.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, so your character you mentioned leads, or led a seemingly good life, right? You have parents, you got siblings,
Yes.
all that sort of thing. How much regret does he currently sort of have about sort of leaving that life behind, or is it all just a singular focus?
So it's definitely the regret. So he's a 17-year-old kid who was told he will one day become a god. And it's the torn fact that, if someone tells you you can do this, you're like, yeah, I can do it. But then the stress of the reality of it definitely starts to weigh it. As you notice, he works with the Kids of Cord, which are a lot of like young kids, primarily orphans, but people who come from broken homes, and he helped them out growing up because someone helped him out because he was the nerdy kid. Everyone else, especially because like his dad owns a weapon shop. His uncles were all warriors. His mother was a warrior. Everyone in his family either use weapons, make weapons, and he's the only person who's like, oh, I like books.
Right.
So there's the only regret is like they've always said be whatever you want to be. Like his family's been very supportive of him. His father's not very clean on the whole fact he keeps saying deification, which Frizz has brought up over and over. But there's a lot of like up fear and concern of the fact that he will have to like he's left his family behind and his journey will take him so far from his home he'll never be able to return. There's definitely a lot of like regret, which is why he's giving away all his gold every chance he can because
Right.
he doesn't want to be attached to anything. But it's hard. You're 17. Emotions are wild. Puberty is hard enough. Not being told you got to become a god and fight things and elementals and so on.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, so as far as backstories go, one of the sort of biggest things so far with Jinx has been her addiction. So, I mean, I know obviously there's going to be a lot of this that comes out in the story, but what can you sort of tell us about your addiction? What's the story behind it, and how much it sort of influences Jinx currently?
Okay, so I can't. Yeah, like I don't know.
Tough.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, one quick background I can give, is that Jinx, has been close to people before. She had a really rough childhood. And we will get that detail eventually. I can, like I said, we'll get there. She had a rough childhood. Um, uh, the prolific paternal figure in her life obviously was a big influence on her. She really looked up to him. And things kind of fell apart. She ended up on her own at a very young age, and kind of emulated things. She's like I said, she's been very close to people. Stuff happened, and she's been alone for a number of years now, just kind of making her way through the world, trying to survive, and coping with things in not the best way. Enough to the point where she kind of like legitimately she said it several times in the show, like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot what I was like looking for. Like, she's 100% got to the point where like a lot of the time she just loses sight of it. There's a lot of she has a lot of resentment towards herself for a lot of that. I mean, that's clearly reflected, especially with the whole fountain thing, and then like turning it into a joke. Was like, oh no, I'm just playing with you, dude. Like,
It's a very addict thing to do.
Yeah.
As somebody who comes from that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing, you sort of take a serious situation, try to put a spin on it, be like, oh no, it's just, whatever.
Yeah,
It's
just
no big
playing
deal.
around. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I have my family history is like that's coming from a place, and that'll come out more too. But yeah, she's got battle scars, bro. And I mean, when she kind of like took off and ran off from that, is the last thing she ever wants to do. Like, this group of people that she's starting to open up to, last thing she ever wants to do is hurt any of them. And she did not react well when she thought she did.
So one of the things that makes me curious about Jinx, just as a follow-up to that, is like, so she's often, feels awkward, out of place, and she also sort of barely knows the people that she's with currently. Like, is there something else that's like driving her to go into these situations that she knows that she's not very comfortable with?
Yeah.
Dope.
Question answered. Done.
Awesome. Next question.
Yeah, no, she likes these guys. She's not exactly sure why she does. She's starting to figure out kind of why she does, but she likes them. And in a weird way, like, this is, like I said, she's made friends and stuff throughout the years, but they don't last long. They don't stick around. She usually keeps that's a point. And this group, I mean, we're so inviting of, oh yeah, come along with us, and like, it was easy. They were very inviting.
Sure.
Which y'all real trusting. But
serial killer tendencies.
It's true.
Yeah, but no, there's something about the group, like she sees them trying to take care of each other, and I think it's just something she's missed.
Yeah. I just, it's interesting. It's almost like, I mean, she's definitely seeking out something that puts her in very awkward positions often.
Yes.
So I know that, like, I made a joke about it, I don't know, last week or some point, that like Rex sort of dipped his toe into the alcoholism bucket a little bit. What's the reasoning behind him sort of starting to explore that? And then are there any sort of darker traits? I know I make a lot of jokes about Rex, but are there actually any sort of darker traits that he's trying to suppress to be this sort of, divine type person?
Oh, well, it's actually, it's two parts to that. And I will say, like, the dipping into alcohol was mainly, he's lived a very precise life. It's one of those, his life has almost scripted, but now he has to figure it out on his own. And when you're out there, he's like, I don't know what to do. And as an impressionable young man, he sees someone who's considered a peer drinking and keeps, hair on your chest and so on. And he's like, well, maybe this is what I should do. And so he's very impressionable and will follow that suit. But there is the fact that he is a devout follower of Agma, as he prays often, he goes to the church, he has the materials and so on, but there is clearly this voice constantly reaching out to him, which was mentioned when he spoke with Aelos about the Traveler, which is known to be not a dark entity, but a very persuasive entity, not part of the good side of things. So when you have an essence telling you one thing, and then you have a religious belief of another thing, and then the culture of community telling you one thing, and your parents telling you this, when you're pulled so many different directions, and then you're finally given the option to choose, you just kind of typically will make bad decisions because you need to figure it out. There's a lot that he's suppressing to manage on that end.
And as far as the Traveler goes, now obviously I would say the vast majority of casual D&Ders know the Traveler from Critical Role. So
Yes.
is this a different path of
This is a different. So Diane would be able to say more accurately based on her Pantheon design, but it is closer. There's Travelers in different versions. Critical Role has a Traveler that's probably the most similar version compared to other Travelers, which is just an old being considered an old god to some, who simply travels the world with powers and sometimes make deals. There is I did write a fanfic on the Traveler and Rex, which I'm hoping becomes canon. I'm just saying, Diane, if you're out there, tell me it's canon and we're good. Which kind of highlights Rex's background and also my interpretation of the Traveler. But it is closest to the Critical Roles version if you had to pick a reference point.
Gotcha. Cool.
And I love all versions of the Traveler. Fun fact, Riff Raff, her patron was also based on the Traveler, but like the super dark, scary, like Beware the Gifts of the Traveler, because I went spooky.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, ever since they were first mentioned, that was my first thought. Was like, how is that compared to the other one? It seems, just based off the interactions you had so far, obviously less jovial a little bit, but the same sort of idea. So curious.
I will tell you that with the way the Traveler is, the way that is portrayed for Rex is different than the Traveler actually is, because it is from the perspective of a 17-year-old who has yet to see the world to really understand. Which is why what Carson said to him hit so hard when he's like, you will definitely probably die. You should stop this, but you're going to learn on your own. It definitely put Rex in a position like, oh, well, what makes it bad? Because keep in mind, everyone, like you saw, Frizz tells him, don't talk about it. He's never been allowed to talk about it, so the truth is only when he's been able to read. And he's only read that the Traveler's bad. But we've never actually met the Traveler yet.
Right.
And that's a big component of what's going on. And Diane just confirmed that the backlore I wrote is now canon, and therefore...
Heard it here first. I am the center of breaking news on the Fable 42.
So we'll see when it's released, but there is a specific deep lore canon for the Traveler, Rex, and the Absolutes that will eventually be released in some really primo content.
Sorry, very cool chat.
I love it.
Heck yeah. Okay, so I'm actually getting a lot of questions in chat, so I'll hit some of those and then I'll come back to some of the other ones that I have. Okay, so actually, I do want to know this one too. I'll come back to that. Okay, so this is for both you guys. What are some of the characteristics your characters have in common with you, IRL?
Do you want to start off?
Go first.
Yeah, you should start off.
Okay. Unintentionally.
Those are the best.
Yeah, unintentionally, my awkwardness just bleeds into everything I do. Even when I'm like, this character is gonna be super badass and goth edgy. Oh wait, she doesn't know how to talk to people? What is this? Where is this coming from? Oh my god, it's me. Clearly, the depressive issues that also find their way into everything I make is also something else. I've actually poured a lot, I've poured a lot into Rook, just like a lot of my teen angst and confusion and issues, and I just went, you know what? There it is.
Ta-da.
And with Jinx, I put a lot of special stuff into Jinx, actually. Jinx and I have a lot in common with, like, not necessarily, like, the rough upbringing. There's, like, some of the addictive stuff, definitely, like, with my family history and stuff. Not me necessarily personally, but I've watched family go through things like this.
Sure.
It's directly affected by it. And so that's part of it. Then there are parts of Jinx that I absolutely love. People she's known that are in her backstory that are very important to me, and that'll come out too. It's just well, her hyper aggressive, like just like this, like no BS nature is like modern me, whereas like Rook has a lot of my old insecurities, which they're totally gone. They don't exist anymore.
Sure.
Ever.
Yeah.
It's fine. And but it's just kind of funny. I just unintentionally I bleed into all of them, like I just do.
Yeah. Absolutely. What about you, Captain?
So, the way it's funny. My characters, the way they're designed is I take a moment in my life and was like, and I do, what if it went the other way?
Oh yeah. Okay.
So, I grew up in a very, I'm a black man who lived in Southern California, but I lived in a Republican white military town, which comes with its own issues, as you can only imagine.
I live in West
And
Virginia. I don't really. Yeah.
so each of my characters, I always have one rule with all my characters. They will be at least half black. That's just the rule. I don't care what it is. They're half black. And so they're almost always half human because I'm like, they are half black in general. Whether or not that race is a thing, I'm like, either way, they have to be black. So like Rex is like, when I ran for mayor, what if I would have went fully down that road of politics, but more it's religious because it's the ancient times.
Right.
Clay takes from the fact that I was a trained samurai when I was a teenager. I actually trained under Bushido and learned the way of the samurai. When I left, because my parents were religious, my family was religious Christian, and I was like, I don't want to be in there. And I followed the way of the samurai. They didn't like that. And I'm like, what if I took that route and ran with it all the way? And Clay was made that way. And then Olden was like made from the fact that growing up, people always told me that, I would be gifted. I would be able to do so much if it weren't for my shortcomings. And when they said shortcomings, it was the fact that I was black. So I was like, okay, that's the case. I'm going to make an elf because elves are always the gifted race. But I'm like, what if I made them half black anyway? To put these shortcomings in there. All my characters come, I make the most perfect character, and I add the flaws that everyone else thought I had into them.
Yeah, so that's great. That's fantastic.
So I get to live the what if story of who I would have been in that situation.
That's very cool. That is very cool. I'd say as far as I go, one of the things that I have problems with, particularly with Thagan, is I don't know if you guys can tell from the recaps that I do, but I'm a snarky smartass, and so a lot of that, a lot of the things that I think in my head, I'm like, Thagan wouldn't say that shit. So I just have to be quiet a lot with Thagan, which is kind of annoying.
That is a challenge when you're like, especially when you're humorous and your character's not, and you're like, I have a funny thought, and you're like,
yeah, nope, he's not funny.
All of my characters have to have some. Rook is too awkward, and that's how I kind of mask it all there. Jinx, I can just flood all of that bitter sarcasm.
Yeah, no, I mean that's and that's typically I usually play the sort of I don't know. I mean, not always rogues or anything, but like the Harrison Ford style character, right? The half the roguish, snarky guy. That's my typical character. Either that or really stupid, because really stupid people can get away with saying, mean things about people. Yeah, it's really funny. So, but yeah. Okay, so let's see here. I want to get through. There's so many questions. There's more questions I've ever had. Okay, so this one's for both you guys. So you guys have shared some. This is Jinx and Rags. You guys have shared some fairly sweet moments throughout this short campaign, and I know Jinx has alluded to it a little bit, but just explain it for people that may not have caught it. Just why do you think your characters are so drawn to each other? And Jinx, or Taryn, you can go first.
Well, for her, one, he reminds her of somebody, kind of just unintentionally, and so it was just natural that she was just like really protective over him. And then I mean, like their first night, everybody meeting, he was just instantly kind. And I mean, she's been out on her own for 9 years. And it's not been kind. Most people are not that way. She's lived in bars and all kinds of places. And so like one of the first things, this person that he didn't know, any better. I mean, and he was kind. They fed her. They were friendly to her. And like that was the first part. And then I mean he was very clear, like immediately, like I have huge aspirations and I'm gonna be like but like she's not
Nice to meet you. I'm
stupid.
going to be a god.
Yeah, she's not stupid. I mean, she's very well aware. She just doesn't always know how to communicate that, and she knows how dangerous is that going to be. And like, part of it's just like a gratitude thing at first. But I mean, she sees that he's kind, and he trusted her, and she was like, I mean, she appreciates that. She also sees him as more than this aspiration, and sees that he's stupidly smart. And I mean, he's tried to help her multiple times. She's just. You're nice to somebody that's usually treated like dirt. Like,
Doesn't take a lot.
yeah, it just started her. It started her noticing other things about him.
Why do you think Rex is so drawn to Jinx?
I mean, apart from her killer thighs.
Right.
It's honestly the thighs is it.
Yeah,
He saw
that's
the thighs
it.
and was like,
she's just
like if he would have met Ash first, that would have been it. He would have been like, oh dang, them thighs.
she thinks.
But honestly, it's Rex has been, even though he's had the kids of Cord, he's the nerd. He's the nerd who's been picked on, bullied, and all these things. His parents have not so much coddled him, but they've always been like, you don't have to be like the other kids because we know you're not. And so when everyone sees him as this weird kid, and then as he gets older, they then see him as this man with this kid with lofty goals, and that became his identity. Everyone sees the faces that he puts on, even with Frizz is like, don't talk about your deification, but that's all Rex knows. And all these other people he get to meet, they're just kind of like, well, we know this person you present. And Jinx was like, I see the person that's underneath. And she just lingers around him, not asking about the deification, but asks him questions about him, talks to him, about his like normal life. And it's like,
Sure.
For him, it's like someone actually sees the identity, like the person I am, not the identity I present. And that's a big deal for someone who has no idea who he is. He's 17 and still thinks or will be a god one day. So
Sure.
when someone sees the man, he's like, oh, I am a man.
Yeah. So I mean, they just want the same thing that everybody else wants, and they're getting them from each other. Cool. All right. So we'll go a little off because we got just a few minutes here left. So we'll go off into some wizard stuff because wizards rocks. So first question's for Taryn. This is from the chat. Does Rook need saving from Thagan? What? Hold on. Okay. So does Rook?
No, finish the sentence.
Yeah. All right. Does Rook need saving from Thagan, or does Thagan need saving from Rook?
That's a dang good question. Okay, so real talk. Ronan and I talked about everything, the treatment of each other, like all of this was okayed.
Yeah, I didn't spring that on her.
Yeah, just so heads up. Honestly, well, and we kind of addressed it. We'll get there, but because like the party like completely surprised me, and I friggin' love them for it. That was perfect. I mean, neither one was lying when they've both said they trust each other, they care about each other, they're just looking out for the other one. They're not lying. And they're not lying when they're like, it's not, like they have a very odd relationship. And it's built on support. In a way, it's Rook being kind of the like, hey, don't get pissed off and smash this person. And trying to be kind of the level-headed person for Thagan, and Thagan doing what he can to help protect Rook and do as she has asked him to help keep her focused and from being distracted. Really, and just because they trust each other and care about each other doesn't mean that the relationship is healthy. It doesn't mean that it's okay.
Yeah, it's two messed up people in a messed up relationship. I mean, that's just what it is. It's just a weird situation that neither one of them are any good at. So they're just doing the best they can, and they're both terrible at it. So
I mean, the reality is they probably need saving from each other.
Yeah. I mean, they probably, in all intents and purposes, they probably should not be around each other. But the thing that you guys were just talking about is the same thing with her and him, which is like he sees something in her that he needs or wants to protect or whatever, and then she sees something in him. So it's almost like a what's it called? Parasitic relationship, right? So they just
Yeah.
sort of feed off of each other for the good of themselves. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's messed up. But it is what it is.
But yeah, and I mean the party reacted perfectly.
Yeah. I told
Just on
them.
a real note, that was absolutely exactly what they should have done.
Yeah,
Very
100%.
glad.
Yeah, we talked about just sort of behind the curtain. We talked about it after the show, and like that's what we're talking about. It's like that was the best moment, is that everybody reacted exactly how you should react in a domestic violence situation. So kudos to everybody there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. What is? Let's see here. Do I have any more research question? I know I had one for Hemian. I can't find it.
Yes,
okay.
he is allergic to shirts. Yes.
Are you the Raven Queen?
Actually, no. I have another
Hemi
question
and
that I
Kendra?
wanted to ask Jordan. So, okay, the impulse checks.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a set list of triggers for all your characters, or do you feel the moment where the check is needed with each individual character?
So I don't have a trigger, but I do have a scale. So I guess it is a trigger when I think about it. So all my characters have like I call them shifting scales. One example is Rex is the easiest for me to explain because he is both a priest of Ogma, but he also has the voice of the traveler, which are two conflicting religious forces. And at any point when it could benefit one force or the other, I roll to see if that force maintains control in his impulse. So my impulse checks are all based off a shifting scale. Like Clay, for example, he will decide if he will act the way of a samurai or the way of a cowboy.
Oh, okay. All right. That sheds a ton of light on it. Okay, I completely understand.
Impulse checks are a matter of, it's not a matter of like, do I suddenly do something? It's how do I handle it? If he's going to go out guns blazing, then it's more the cowboy. If he's like, let me stay calm, let me stay quiet, Clay's going samurai. That's why you'll notice when I do the rolls, there's a forced habit of the impulse of the travelers definitely more wanting, because it's the idea of a patron as opposed to a god like a church, which is why when the Ogma side wins, he's more reserved, which is why one example was on the train when Rex was like, I need to go pray. He felt this pull. And when he was told he couldn't go, I was like, oh, well, we have to see. Now Ogma has to fight the traveler has to fight the force to be like, well, you can't pray. So that means this force is stronger. But I rolled and the Ogma side won. And so he decided, all right, well, I got to pray. And I have to make sure this place is protected so the traveler doesn't win right now. So all my impulse checks are two sides of a personality spectrum and which one is the overlaying force that would benefit.
That is
for everybody
awesome.
wondering.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, that does shed a ton of light because it's just like the two, angel and devil on your shoulder.
Exactly.
That's very cool.
It keeps me honest because I don't want to be like, well, because I'd be like, I shouldn't do that because I might die. And I'm like, that's not up to me to decide. I shouldn't decide what happens in my life. That's up to Rex, and I need to become Rex. And Rex is pulled by these two voices, Clay, Olden, Hemian. Every character has at least one, if not 10 shifting scales that they use. Like even Hemian, his shirt is part of a shifting scale.
Of course it is.
I love that.
It is.
See,
it's not just some random stuff. It actually has a purpose.
See, when I'm rolling, mine are usually basically like personal sanity checks because all of my characters have issues.
Yeah, I've done something similar to that in the past, but it is very like it's just a choice that I don't want to make. Typically, is what it is. I was like, I don't know, I'll just roll and see.
Yes, that's pretty much how I live it. I'm like, I don't know what I would do, but I know what Rex would do, or I know what they would do. Let me see which side wins. And for example, I will say with the whole Rex situation with the almost dying, that was all leaning so hard to one way that the imbalance led to do dumb things. That led to. And I decided as my personal thing, I said, the more I fail one side, it physically hurts. It's kind of like those when you're torn between should I do this or this, and they're like life or death choices, and you're like, I don't know what to do. That indecisiveness feels like a physical pain. So I decided to give Rex physical pain for having to be unable to make a decision.
Well, Jinx is not going to like that. She's going to be very upset.
Well, that is amazing. Shit. I think we're out of time. Okay. Yeah, we are.
Hey, you got like 37 more questions, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I have a ton.
We don't have anything after this, man.
Okay, well, we're going to keep going then.
This is the Blackest Friday special.
That's
where
right.
Ronin Talks goes after dark while it's black.
That's right.
It's because it's been taken over by Frostguard as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a ton of things to discuss.
And I also feel like I know there's a lot. People's been asking me a lot of questions, and I was like, well, get me on Ronan's show, and I'll answer these questions.
That's right.
You shiesty man.
Let me find one for Jinx. Jinx has become semi-famous for her words "fuck the world." Ditto. Hard ditto there. To what degree does she think that there is nothing of value in the world? So how much of that is just a facade or a shield or something like that?
Oh, she hates people. They have wronged her. Bad things have happened. Most people have left her or departed, and she's mad. She's in a place in the world right now. Like that first run when she went to the cemetery and she saw the statue of Saloon. She does know who Saloon is.
I was going to ask you about that's another one of the questions that on this list.
She knows
is that
who
weird
Saloon
ass
is.
situation.
Yeah, they're all
there.
drinking buddies.
She knows who Saloon is, and it's a big most deities for her right now. She's mad.
Oh, that's awkward.
Well, that's why. I mean, one of the first things she told you was like, "Be a good one."
I do remember that.
Wow. Well, she's kind of like she's in this phase where she's mad at the world. Bad things have happened over and over. She doesn't know why everything always ends up this way, and of course, some of it, like to be fair, like I think following the rhythm of an addict it probably started out actual tragedy, and then other things have happened, and that was tragic. But like because she's an addict and because she clearly has bad behaviors, bad things happen when you do stupid shit.
It's self-fulfilling prophecy at this point.
I feel like that's probably something at this point. But yeah, no, she's 18. She's mad at the world. Life sucked, and like this is the first time in a long time she's slept in a good bed, and good things have been going for her. But like,
did you say she was 18? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
God, you guys are really young too.
And shifters do mature
Minus
slightly
risk.
faster, but I don't know, she's looking out on this world and she's watching these elves look down on everybody. That's pissing her off. She's watching people treat the gnomes and dwarves badly. While she may not be like outwardly reacting to them, she's very aware. She's just, depending on how sober she is, she's thinking of it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's hard, but it'll be interesting to see how much that changes because obviously it's a D&D game, right? So you're going to be doing you're going to be saving the world in theory. So how much of that?
Well, I think she thinks it could be a better place. I think there have been people, and there are people that she thinks it could be a better place. I mean, that last run, she tried not to drink.
Yeah, right.
She was trying. She wants to be better. And I mean, it'll probably come and go, ebb and flow as things happen.
We need health indicators and then Paragon and Renegade scales.
Yeah. Oh man. You mean shadow points and
yes, I do.
But yeah, it's like I don't know. Well, and she's 18. Like she's young. You know?
Right.
Yeah, I hate the world. Everything's awful. Oh wait, there's some nice people in it. This is weird. What's that?
Right.
She'll grow the fuck up.
I do want to comment on the fact that I think also the fact that Jinx is 18 is also what makes Rex feel so connected.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Jinx is a peer, and this is the first peer that isn't like looking down on him.
Right.
Because even his other peers, like what other kid at Cordy met in Athcross, it was a mutual benefactor. They both work for they're not going to become friends. They both work to help other kids, just like someone helped them. But they never had peers on the same level not look down on them. And I think this is the first time that he's having a eye to eye with someone is what really brings.
And you guys are so different on the show, but once you guys start talking about your backstory, there are a lot of like lines that get crossed, which is very interesting.
It's like two outcomes of the same story, and I think that's where it's like we both see where we could have been and what we can become, kind of thing.
Right.
I'm
yeah,
just
that's
a
very
little
interesting.
alley cat. I'm from the wrong side of the tracks, you guys.
Jeez. No Disney movies. So we'll go back to the God thing a little bit with your character Rex. So Rex has essentially declared that he intends to become a god, which we talked about.
Yes.
How much retribution does he fear from the official gods of the Pantheon taking offense to a mortal trying to steal away the exclusivity of godhood?
So there is definitely this like it's a torn between the fact he's 17 and he's invincible. Like when you're 17,
Sure.
especially as a dude, you feel bulletproof. Granted, Rex has been downed I think twice so far, so definitely doesn't feel bulletproof. But there is the fact that he's not so much concerned with it as much as he's concerned about it for other people. He's made comments over and over about how he's worried about everyone else. There was one time he mentioned that he was worried about being close to the group he's adventuring with because of what may happen when this continues down that path. And that's also why he's talked to Jinx about like help make sure I'm on the right path. It's not fear that the gods kind of like, it's not that I'm worried the gods will smite me. I'm worried that the gods will smite my home for what I've done.
Right.
And there's like, that is always going to sit at the back of his mind, which would cause anybody to drink when they start to think about the fact that now they have people they have to consider and care for, that they may become responsible for their downfall at some point.
Right. You're going to be carrying a lot with you on this trip.
Exactly. Especially with the idea that deification has always been the concept of you must relinquish your earthly ties. That's a lot for someone who's just now finally leaving home. Like, I'm just now seeing the world and I got to think about leaving it. It's daunting. It's very daunting.
Sure. Absolutely. All right. So we'll do two more questions. They're both for us and they're both kind of silly. They're
always
for
fun,
all
though.
three of us. So the first question is from Barracks, which seems like a fairly easy question. It says, why is Frostguard the best household?
Like, isn't that obvious? I mean, we're
I think
just
so.
the best ever at everything. We have the best. No, I don't know. It just is super vibes, right? Like, I mean, just get real. Like, when you think about it, we also have like the coolest mascot ever. We have blade singing and war
Yep.
magic and
War
necromancy
Yep.
and
It's-
illusion.
I think it's really funny though that whenever Wizards was like announced and started, like Frostguard was immediately cast as Slytherin. Like
know.
there was no hesitation from any, including us.
I haven't even got there yet.
Yeah, and so it was funny that we are, I would say, probably the misfits of everybody, but not inherently evil. I mean, people have done like worse things than we have.
Okay.
Yeah, they broke more. Kai has broke more rules than Thagan has even thought about at this
Ryan
point.
has killed more people than
Yes.
anybody.
Yeah, she came in with a body count. Thagan has not killed anybody ever. So, just saying. Probably that you guys know about. Shut up. All right.
Really?
I have concerns.
Whatever.
Also, fun fact: we have Crixie.
Dude,
Okay.
Crixie might be my favorite character in all of Wizards.
We have fucking Crixie.
I have no doubt, no question. Crixie's MVP of Venom College.
Yeah.
Crixie would be the mascot if we didn't already have one.
I know. I
She's-
want the mascot to change. Can we like vote? Like, can we get a council together for Venom to change?
I
It's definitely
specifically
gonna be
wanted to
Prom
be
Queen, I
Crixie
think.
on the arm of her Twig Blight. That is the new Venom College. Like, that's it.
She is adorable and terrifying all at the same time. So
We also have Ferks, and that's part of it. We also have Ferks, and you know, just saying.
yeah. So all of us are awesome, obviously, minus Leo. Moving on.
Someone's a little salty.
Shut up. Okay, and the last question, we'll just end it on this. This is one that was submitted by Renee, and he submitted a bunch of questions, and I was like, "Hey,
Sure.
cool, thanks." And then I read them, and this was the last one that he sent, and it cracked me up. So I have to ask it.
Okay.
This is for all three of us. How do you feel having formed the most chaotic, dangerous, and sexy triad that practically no one is aware of yet? I think
Set
he's
up.
referring to us.
I think
Us or the wizard us? Because either way, he's correct.
Yeah, I like to think it's both.
Yeah. I'm down for that answer. That's cool.
It's fun. I like our characters a lot.
Yeah.
I think they're. I wish. Obviously, we have to split up and that sort of thing. So there's only 2 and 2, but
Mhm.
the stuff that with Rook is already there and implanted with Thagan, so that relationship's already grown. I like the idea of like I made a couple comments in our show about Hemian just because I know that like we would have had numerous horrendous interactions with one another, but he still likes Hemian. Like he sees the potential there, and he's like I know that he would want to pursue that sort of, because he's all about like finding people that he thinks can support what he wants to do in life. He's not a big like I can do this on my own. Like he's like I know I'm gonna need people because what I want to do is huge. Mm-hmm. And I need to find the people that I need. And so I know he would think that about Hemian, but he would just despise like himself trying to communicate with
every conversation.
Hemian is so flamboyant though, and Thagan, it's like, I don't know, Thagan's so serious and Hemian is just so fun loving, which like honestly like puts Rook in a real weird position.
I think she would be the conduit between the two, honestly.
Yeah, so Rook is a conduit, it's fine. So Rook, sometime in that first year, has decided to start trying to open herself up to emotion, which of course is then her bro is like, hey, stop that, because it's distracting. And so like basically she's finding herself. So one fun fact, and I will go ahead and say because I don't know if this will come out, is Rook like spent her whole childhood reading fantasy books, and so her idea is there's this knight in shining armor that's going to come show up and sweep you off your feet and save you from all the awful world, and everything's going to be okay, you know. And she's finding out that emotions are more complex than that. She's not even supposed to have them. She's really confused by that. She also mixes up she's mixing up hormones and emotions, or she will depending on the situation. But she keeps finding herself in people, and she's realizing that she's finding parts of herself in different people, and that's even more confusing. But it's also weird to me, like just as it like meta level, like how many people are drawn to Rook, because like she's super fucking awkward, dude.
I love the way you did it. She's really fucking awkward, dude. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like sorry, my skater talk will never go away.
No, that was perfect. That was. I do want to point out, if we're on that note, that Hemian, just because he deals in nepotism doesn't mean he's a bad guy. Okay, just want to put that at the net.
One of the best jokes of anything ever.
Mm-hmm. Another reason
it was amazing. Yes. I just want to put out that Hemian, just because he animates the dead, has a corpse of a beholder, has a shadow undead companion, does not make him a bad guy. He's actually very nice, very sweet, very fun-loving. He just happens to prefer to hang out at a graveyard.
We don't know that yet.
But I do think that is a common thread. So, you know, when you're looking for common threads among the house, like I think prejudgment of the person comes heavy in our group, right? So we come in like people just automatically assuming what we are, who we are, all those sort of things.
We have a Goliath who's stone cold. We have a kobold, and everybody feels how they feel about kobolds. We have Hemian, who is what he is, and he is unique, and he is dark and shirtless.
Oh, no.
And Thea, who's not supposed to be a magician or a wizard or whatever.
Yeah, and then we have Crix. And then we have like the auntie. You know, like we come from backgrounds where people are very quickly judging what we should be.
I mean, when you tell someone that you're a half tiefling and you deal necromancer, they're like, and
Devil.
He's the guy we're supposed to go kill like now, right?
You're evil. You're the BBEG, right?
Yeah, like he's by default the BBEG. Like we know what happens at the end of this episode. He's the bad guy, right? Like everybody's like, if we go to a dungeon, I promise you, he's sitting there with his book saying, "Welcome to my dungeon," and animates a dragon.
Little do they know there are shadow people killing people all over the school.
I do want to point out when the moment I saw that on the first episode where shadow things were coming up, I was like, oh no. Okay, guys, like I know.
That's I literally said it. Thagan said it. It was like, oh god, where's Hemian?
And I was like, where is Hemian right now? And I'm like, Hemian's probably doing something in his room. And so I was like, what are you doing? He's like, what do you mean? I'm playing with my. I'm having a tea party. Yeah, with my undead. Oh, people are dying. Well, can you save me one? Back to my tea party.
Oh my gosh.
Jesus. That's accurate. All right. Well, it is getting late, so I think
it
we
is.
will end it there. I appreciate you guys. This was a blast. Chat, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
And I think we have next up will be Vault, I guess, tomorrow evening.
Mhm.
So join us then, and we will see you soon. See you guys.